Hello and welcome. Today we begin with the dramatic turn of events that unfolded in the West African nation of Guinea-Bissau, where the army has seized control and the president has been arrested. But before we get into the details of that, listen to this. What you heard was heavy gunfire near the presidential palace, and with this, the men in military uniform took over the road leading to the building. A similar attack was reported at the National Electoral Commission, again by unidentified men. The head of the Presidential Military Office announced the closure of the country's land and sea borders, which were opened later. He claimed that a plan had been uncovered to destabilise Guinea-Bissau involving national drug lords to alter the constitutional order.
Established by the top leadership of different branches of the armed forces, the High Military Command for the Restoration of National Security and Public Order has just assumed full state powers of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau.
The country's new military leaders have suspended the electoral process and imposed a mandatory curfew. Guinea-Bissau is a small country with a population of around 2 million people. It is on the southern edge of the Sahel region, bordering it to the north.
The High Military Command for the Restoration of National Security and Public Order has decided to immediately depose the President of the Republic and, until further orders, to shut down all institutions of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau, to immediately suspend the ongoing electoral process, to close the land and maritime borders, as well as the national airspace.
Well, the takeover came 3 days after the presidential election on November the 23rd, which saw the deployment of close to 6,800 security personnel, including troops from the Economic Community of West African States Stabilization Force. After the election, the country's president, Umaro Sissoco Embaló, had declared victory. He was arrested and reportedly detained along with the Chief of Staff and the Minister of the Interior. Embalo had been ruling by decree since dissolving an opposition-dominated legislature in 2023. Meanwhile, opposition leader Domingos Simões Pereira, who was barred from the presidential election for filing his application late, has also reportedly been arrested. The disqualified leader had thrown his weight behind opposition candidate Fernando Diaz, who had also declared a poll win. The action-filled day left the streets of the West African nation deserted, with its citizens staring at an uncertain future. With this, Guinea-Bissau has joined a long list of nations in the Sahel and outside, which are led by Junta leaders. The latest military takeover of yet another African nation has sounded alarm bells across the globe. Guinea-Bissau's former colonial ruler, Portugal, has called for the resumption of the electoral process and discouraged any act of institutional or civic violence. The African Union, regional bloc ECOWAS, and the West African Elders Forum have expressed deep concern over what they described as a blatant attempt to disrupt the democratic process. The UNSC chief has urged all stakeholders to exercise restraints and respect the rule of law. Political instability is not new to Guinea-Bissau. It has experienced 4 coups since its independence in 1974, while multiple attempts have also been thwarted. The latest one was just last month, when the country's army arrested several senior military officers. The last presidential election in 2019 also brought in a political storm. Both main candidates had claimed victory that time as well. And what followed was a 4-month-long crisis. Guinea-Bissau is one of the world's poorest countries and a hub for drug trafficking between Latin America and Europe. This adds to its citizens' woes. And for more on this, we have with us Dr. Folomani Aina, who is an international security analyst joining us from London. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Dr. Aina, this coup comes before election results have even been announced. Does that process now become redundant? And what do you think might happen to the political leaders who claimed victory?
No, thank you very much. Unfortunately, the decision to take over by the military in many ways sets back the democratic process that Guinea-Bissau, has enjoy for some time now. Essentially, also, this decision in itself, in many ways, negates the essence of democracy, and also it further jeopardizes the prospects of having a system, that represents the collective will and interests of the people of the country. And now it's very likely, unfortunately, that both the president of Guinea-Bissau and the opposition leaders are most likely going to remain under arrest, including potentially house arrest. And as we've seen in countries like Niger, with Bosom, we're not sure how long this is going to take effect, because most of the time when the militaries come into power in within these climes, they have always argued that they would expedite the transition process, but unfortunately the result has always been different because they perpetuate themselves in power longer than expected, and in many ways this rolls back the gains that have been made in terms of democratic consolidation.
Yes, absolutely. And Dr. Reiner, of course, instability has been common since independence for Guinea-Bissau. Do you think that the latest coup will continue that pattern, or could it be part of future democratic efforts?
Well, unfortunately, in many ways, as I previously mentioned, this process in many ways is going to set back whatever progress Guinea-Bissau has made, and also it's likely going to continue for a while, because in many ways, this is going to create new forms of instability, not only for the country itself, but also potentially for the broader region, including the prospects of peace and security. When you think about it, Guinea-Bissau over the years, in recent times, has been known to be a route, particularly for narcotics, including cocaine. In fact, the UN has termed it a narco state, and so there's every likelihood, that those who seemingly take a benefit from, the illegal activities in this regard would take advantage of the instability that has been caused by this new power vacuum, even though the military has tried to fill it, and they've said that one of the reasons why they are taking over power at this time is to potentially avert, a plot, whatever the case may be. But even though we've also seen this as the same rhetoric that other juntas in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have used, because as I've argued previously, the military are ill-equipped, for the rigors of democratic governance. They don't have what it takes to lead a country. Even though Guinea-Bissau has just 2 million people, there's every likelihood that their assumption to power is only going to worsen the situation and create more instability on the ground.
Yes, and Dr. Reiner, to finish, I want to build on those comments that you made. You, of course, listed a couple of other countries that have faced military coups in recent times. They have been prevalent across parts of the continent in recent years. What does this trend mean for the African continent moving forward?
Well, unfortunately, what this does is that it has the potential to continue to embolden juntas across the region to take advantage of whatever political misalignments that might be taking place within their countries on the one hand, but even more so is that this creates a lot of instability in the sense that non-state actors, particularly those who are bent on causing chaos and fomenting disorder within these states, will begin to see these vacuums that are being created as an opportunity to continually perpetuate, their acts of terror on these states. And even more so, a third angle is that it has the likely tendency to further isolate these countries from the broader international community, in addition to a fourth point, which is the prospects of it further severing state-society relations. In other words, it has the tendency to pit the state against, to pit society against the states, and across so many forms of discontent amongst the people. So bottom line is the military, even though they have taken over power, are most likely going to struggle with a legitimacy crisis, which is something we've seen across the region with other states, that have now been taken over by military coups.
Yes, in Guinea-Bissau, a lot for us to continue monitoring here on Firstpost Africa. Dr. Reiner, thank you ever so much for your time and your insight.
Thank you very much for having me.
I wore the crown of a revolutionary. I promised to lift my nation. I claimed to fight imperialism. I became the very thing I warned against. I funded militias across continents. I feared my own shadow. Some called me the King of Kings. History calls me something else. The dictator. Who am I?